Hii ni 103.9 Must FM. Kama nilivyokueleza awali kwamba tunaye mgeni studioni, tutakuwa tunafanya mazungumzo moja kwa moja hapa studioni. Tutakuwa tunafanya mazungumzo kuhusiana na masuala mbalimbali, ama masuala kuu zaidi likiwa ni our justice system, ambapo tunataka tuzungumzie swala kubwa tu. Je, ni kwa nini tumeziacha zile zetu za kitambo tukakwenda kwa yale mengine ya kawaida ambayo yana madhara yake? Kumbuka mjadala wa leo mzuri zaidi. Mzuri zaidi kwa sababu ni mambo mazuri. Karibu sana daktari studioni.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, first of all, you can give us a brief of who is Dr. Ahaya. You know, there are people who know you, students, neighbors. But the first question, who is Dr. Ahaya?
Okay, thank you once more.
Yeah.
Dr. Ahaya is a lecturer Mwalimu in the Department of Social Science Education, Masinde Muliro University. He is a lecturer of religion, and in religion he has keen interest in areas such as Islamic studies. I know that will surprise many people. He also has very keen interest on African religion, not African traditional religion. We are very emphatic about the African religion.
African religion.
Not traditional. And then I'm also very keen, have keen interest in the general area of religion and social change.
So, where is the line? African religion, Christianity, Islamic?
Not Christianity.
So you've not mentioned Christianity?
I didn't mention Christianity.
Good.
But I've mentioned religion and social change. That is the general.
Yes.
Where Christianity is also one of the religions.
And then your interest is Islamic?
Yes, I'm leaning towards Islamic studies.
Yes.
And also I've told the African religion.
Yeah.
And religion and social change as an area. You know, we are living in times that are changing rapidly. Where religions must also adapt to the changes.
Okay. Another part of you, people know you with sports?
Yes, outside the classroom, I'm very keen on rugby. I think I work very closely with the most rugby, but it's knocking very hard on the doors of the National League, Kenya Cup. I play the role of the main coach in the team, but in that team, we call ourselves Makaka. Makaka is a Kiswahili word for Mandu. So it's a team of kakas. I'm sure where they are, they know that.
They know that.
That's why we have really made a lot of strides to get to where we are. We are one of the top university sites in the country today in rugby.
Your interest in rugby is generates from your earlier area of work, where maybe you've worked with, I understand, Kakamega High School?
Yes.
And there you developed the sport.
Yes.
Maybe give us a preview of it. How was it working with these young men and making them like rugby?
Yeah, those were some very happy moments I had in my life. We worked with the Kakamega High School, the young people, and generally very talented young people. I remember one of our big moments was when we played under 19 final with the national side Wales in Dubai, and we lost in that final. But you know, as we were playing as Kakamega High School, and them they were playing as Wales national under 19. Some 4 years later, they were a very tough side now as seniors, even sometimes upsetting our national side. I think that was a memorable moment for me in Kakamega High School, and the kind of talents that was developed there. I've always looked back at that history with a lot of nostalgia.
Okay, you are an expert in research too, and so many people associate Dr. Ahaya with the research. And the issue at hand today, we are dealing with the indigenous African systems. In short, what are these indigenous African systems?
Okay. Actually, we are dealing with the African indigenous justice system
Yes.
that falls within the general rubric of African indigenous knowledge. The indigenous system or indigenous knowledge is simply, can I put it lightly, simply a situation where we don't want to forget the histories as they have held us together from time immemorial. And this history definitely is spatially connected. It connects with space. So it is a history of our experiences as Africans, and that is practical experiences, often just told in stories, carried forward in stories. And of course you have said that this history is connected to land, in fact. That's now where the indigenous thing comes in. Yeah. Unless you're asking what is the research about.
Yes, yes.
And the present research, the one we've been carrying around, is on indigenous African justice system and how we can use the same to enhance justice. And as we enhance justice, we are also very concerned on redressing the runaway impunity in our justice system in Kenya.
So, in our understanding our justice system, we borrow so many, we borrow a lot from the British law system.
Yes.
And before, we had our own system. So I want to understand that your research is guided towards taking us back to our system. So how was the system, or how is this African indigenous system? How does it work?
Yeah, maybe in the first place, it is not really taking us back.
Yes.
It is just reminding us that we are still in that system. So it is not going back anywhere, as we shall see. It is just to remind us so that we become more conscious of the system that has sustained us. And often it sustains us, and we appear not to be aware. We emphasize other things formally, but then we work with another one informally, and the majority of us do that. What was the other part of the question?
Now, in relation to, like, you can give us an overview of our current justice system.
Okay, I get it. You know, we have always argued that during the struggle for independence in this country, often people think that independence was just one second unilateral, just political independence. When we got our political leaders and even got our African president. But independence as a phenomenon was multidimensional. There were so many things to fight for in independence. In religion, there was even religious independence that gave rise to the independent church movements, for example. In economics, I'm sure there was a struggle for independence. In politics, of course, it is very obvious. What is really known is that even in the area of law, the legal system, the Mzungu had already imposed his system. And did it resonate very well with us? No. There was a struggle among very many people, specialists in that area, to also get independence in the legal sector. Unfortunately, independence was acquired in very many of these areas, except in the legal sector, something that even surprised the colonialists. The colonialists were very worried that, you know, as we live, even our laws will go, and what will happen? So they were very surprised that as they were living, their laws remained. It surprised them. But it did not go, and therefore, we did not get that independence in the legal sector. The Western laws continue to work, the laws that work from top to the ground, the laws that are a bit not really suited to our ecological setup as Africans. So, occasionally or often we say, the law that works in Kenya today operates from the perspective, from the lens of the Westerner. So that some of the things we do under law are very strange. You don't perhaps even know why we do them that way. Yeah.
Now, your research, the African indigenous justice system, enhancing access to justice and redress to impunity in Kenya. raises so many issues here, but in the first place, what necessitates this study or this research?
A very good question. What prompted?
Yeah.
Why did we feel it was a very necessary research? One, we live in societies that are changing. The society today is individualized. It is emphasizing a lot of individualism, a lot of interest in property, and such things. That, again, you look at them, it is a Western trend. So our legal system also appears to be in that direction, where today some of the things we protect very much, and we need to protect them anyway, things like human rights. It does not equally emphasize things like the common good of community and public morality. So that was an issue. Again, the formal system of justice is very expensive. Few can afford. So it will mean few have access. Apart from that, there's a problem also of distance. Sometimes you have to travel very far to get justice. Besides that, there are many. Besides that, there is also the problem of language. The language used is very strange. You know, look at the average Kenyan and the legal language in the country. There's a kind of disparity, and even the logic employed. The logic is equally alien. So what is the implication of this? That perhaps a majority of Kenyans actually don't have serious access to justice. So, but then we still live in these communities and live in peace. It means there must be a system at work. And that's why we were interested in looking at this system at work. And how can we empower this system? And of course, this system is the indigenous African ways, how Africans live and all that. So that's why I'm saying it is not something about going back to the old days. It is just recognizing what is there and perhaps bringing to light those very good things about it. And of course, it cannot be a perfect system. We are also aware of that. Yeah.
Someone may argue that pengine kwa hii Kenyan system ambayo tulitoka kwa British law system ni kwamba you have stages whereby unaweza peleka mtu kamshtaki kotini, amekukosea, ukishafanya mawili matatu, unaenda high court up to supreme level. Now on this indigenous system, you can simply explain to my listener how will it work? Kwa sababu hii nyingine kuna zile stages, na hii nyingine pengine itafanywa vipi? Kwa sababu in current setting kuna cases that are dealt with na zinachukua muda mrefu sana. For example, Chief Justice Maraga alikuwa hapa jana and he talked about the same thing, akisema there are cases that should be dealt with out of court. So how are they done? Like, if you give us an example of like land cases that are there, customary cases.
And that is the indigenous system we are talking about.
Yes.
That we use every day.
So the breakdown of it, how does it work?
It begins from the family, and it is community based. It works within the community, and I think the one you described, the Western one, works on those Western principles. The indigenous African justice system operates at those stages of a family, community, but the main aim, and that's where the big difference is always to restore the balance in community. It is what is called restorative justice. To look at the harm that has been done to the community. In indigenous justice, anytime something goes wrong, it is to the community. The entire community must sit together. And maybe it will come later. It depends so much on the African worldview. And African worldview is the way it is, and many Africans subscribe to it. It makes the entire system very fast, because indigenous Africa had a way of establishing honesty. So that from the beginning, people are very true with one another. They are swearing very truthfully. And if there is a conflict and people are ready to say the truth, they are even ready to forgive one another, it will move fast. In the Western one, even sometimes lies begin at the swearing moment. And then it also works on so many logic things where it is not really the truth that carries the day. Perhaps it is evidence, whether it is not a truthful evidence. So the two systems, from my perspective, are a bit different. The Western one, with this organization, has the tendency to take long. The African indigenous system begins immediately. It begins immediately. It is not very formal. It begins with the family even that day. And many times it even ends just in one day. Because the main aim is not to punish. Many times it is not really to punish the individual. It is to restore balance. An African world exists in a balance, a very delicate balance. Remember, anytime something goes wrong in society among Africans, and that is us, we always ask, what have we done that is wrong? Why are gods annoyed? That is a typical African way of responding to crisis. You see that? Why? Because everything we do, there's always the sacred presence. And this sacred presence has a very big role to play in the indigenous African justice system. So it helps us.
So can we have both of them at the same time? Like the indigenous and the common law borrowed from the...
that is now the gist of our research. That is the gist of this research. Yes, according to our constitution, we have them together. In fact, there was even a report submitted recently by a task force to look at how alternative justice systems can work. I think that's what Maraga was talking about yesterday, so that some things can be solved outside the courtrooms.
Yeah, it was initiated by the former CJ, Mutunga.
Yeah. 120 days in office. When he was 120 days in office, he looked at it and formed a task force. This task force came up with a format of even how to incorporate. But the same problem, some very serious problems still exist. That in this incorporation is never balanced. In this incorporation, indigenous African justice system is perceived from a Western perspective, and that denies it some kind of that takes away some kind of spirit from it, because the two systems operate from very different philosophical perspectives. So yes, it is integrated, but that integration is problematic. That is part of what this research was looking at. How can we integrate in such a way that it still retains its spirit?
Therefore, then sends us to the real objectives of the study then, of this research.
Okay.
What did you want to achieve in relation to this research? Because then my listener will have to understand basically what indigenous African justice is in relation to these issues that arise.
Okay. Yes, as I've told you.
Yes.
The main problem of this, and again, is that background of affordability, impunity, so a lot of backlog in our courts, foreign languages, and foreign logic and all that. Against that backdrop, our main concern in this study was to assess the nature of indigenous African justice and explore opportunities it provides with reference to maybe redressing the ills of the formal system in Kenya. So, to do that, of course, that's the main problem.
Yes.
And in research, a main problem like that must be broken down into small bits, which then we can now manage in research specifically. So in this study, of course, that broken down part then form what we technically call objectives. one of the objectives was to look really at the nature of indigenous African religion, explore it, the nature. Another objective was to do a serious historical reflection on indigenous African justice. Then, of course, today, I don't know, these media people, they are called the third one, or the fourth. They are crucial. They can play a role. So one of the other, the third objective therefore was just look at also about mass media and how it can impact on indigenous justice system, because they can play a big role positively, and that will help make the country much better. So it was mass media and the indigenous justice system. And the fourth objective, we were to look at the possible models of integrating indigenous knowledge inside what? The formal justice system in Kenya. A fifth objective, you had 6.
Yes.
This one was a serious project.
Yes.
The fifth one was to look at ways of upscaling the use of indigenous African justice system. How can we upscale it? And finally, it was now just look at those opportunities, and that perhaps we can do social re-engineering so that we can enjoy better access, probably perhaps, to justice. Yes.
The argument maybe will be, if we are looking at indigenous justice system, it may favor those ones who are weak in society, and those ones who are strong in the society, like economically able, will go for the other borrowed justice system which exists, because they can use their power to then manipulate, and then it brings out the issue of impunity, whereby we've seen issues being raised and courts passing judgments, then later they use them to against even the person who took them to court. And then it calls for, how will it balance between the society, which is not balanced indeed? How will it balance? Because you have the people who are able in the society, they'll tell you, take me to court, I'm ready for it. If you call him for the other system, anakwambia huko siwezi enda, hivyo vikao mimi siwezi enda. Sasa the balance between this society, because the society has moved. Yeah,
the people you're talking about, the top, we call them the elite. But they are the ones who use the formal court system. A majority of Kenyans don't use that system. A majority of Kenyans live with the indigenous ways. That one is true. Even the report that was submitted about the alternative justice system, in that report confirmed that 90% of Kenyans find their modes of operation in terms of conflicts and where they need laws with the alternative justice. So only 10%, that is the elite. Perhaps it is the elite who finally worked such that at independence, they ensured that the Western system was retained. Maybe they saw loopholes that could be used. And okay, I think to a large extent they might be responsible for the impunity that is there. But first, our main objective was just to ensure that a majority of these people, a majority of Kenyans who may not afford, who may not even understand that language and the logic, they deserve, and that one constitution says, they deserve access to justice. And the one that is closest to them is the indigenous. So maybe that one of the elite and the 10% might be for another day.
Then it brings us to the outcome of the study. And then, as per your research, will people be ready to accommodate this system? And then you can tell us more about the findings of this research.
Yeah, in this research, one of the things that came out very clearly was that as much as indigenous justice system is there, even the constitution talks of alternative justice systems. these customary systems of justice are on the way almost out because of two things, maybe even three. One is there's a clause in our constitution. It is called repugnancy clause. And this repugnancy clause says that anything we do, any form of justice system, must not be repugnant. And this, what is the yardstick? What is the standard of measuring repugnancy? It is a Western standard. It must not taste bad from the point of view of the Western. It must not be repugnant to law, so they say. But which law? The Western, the written law, the Western law. And of course, secondly, there is the human rights venture. Again, in to a large extent, it is very hostile to indigenous justice system, because it was a feeling that sometimes indigenous African justice system is hostile to the individual. But again, from our study, we realize that, there are very many dimensions of truth. It is possible that indigenous African justice can also take care of the individual right, but from an African perspective, an African way of reasoning that can also arrive at that. And our study shows that there is a lot of potential. Indigenous African justice system exhibits a lot of flexibility. A lot of flexibility. And finally, even they submit a report, a good report from the task force, how to incorporate indigenous African laws under the alternative justice system. But still, they are subjecting all this to the Western perspective. It is not given the kind of independence so that it becomes so that it is able to reflect the true African spirit. So that one came out. I don't know if I'll
Yes. Then what is the position of the media then in this?
The position of the media. Okay.
In this system.
You're going to ask that. Okay. In our research, we looked at the media, even from the pre-colonial period. And media played a big role even there in the indigenous justice system. They were the ones to tell people what was going on in society. I remember there's somebody called Isaac Agweze in a book, African Philosophy and African Religion and Philosophy. He cites a situation where some community, anytime there was maybe some conflict and somebody gave false evidence, that person was supposed to carry some jingles and, ring them, walking around the community for even 3 days. And what did that communicate? Everybody knew that that person had lied during a moment when lies were not entertained. So that is communication, that is media. But then, when they asked, in that same community asked, how many times had they seen people ring those bells walking around? It was not a thing that happened every day. For somebody could remember that it happened 25 years ago. It is communicating. It is also telling us something about saying the truth with regard to indigenous justice system, but it is telling you that lying was not something that happened every day. Scenario today. So things like drums and all those were media of communication. So in the traditional, pre-colonial era, there was that use of media in communicating justice issues.
I'm your assistant. Here now.
And then, after independence, the media should still continue with its role. Because from the research that was carried out, there is data, and this time quantitative data, that shows that our mainstream media, most of the times, they will only report about indigenous knowledge and justice system when it is news, meaning something has happened. it cannot come as a feature anywhere. And it is rare that they are on the front page or even back page. They are always in the middle, things like that. So this research opens our eyes about media, because the media, if this thing is very functional in society, then the media should also play a role in helping us to, to socially re-engineer the society so that we come to appreciate. We shall end up then having a very fair society.
Yeah. As we come to the end, the research has incorporated other areas like history, religion, linguistics, and other parts. Maybe you can shed light on how. Maybe you can shed light on how we are dealing with the entire issue. But that one we'll deal with it. Maybe you can take a short break and then we come back and talk about the issue. But I think you'll be telling us more about how the community, how the people who've been incorporated in this research and the roles that they have played. But I think we can continue. So you can shed light on who took part or other areas that have been incorporated in this research. For example, the history part, religion, and all that. How have they played that role in the entire research?
Thank you.
Because now developing the research, bring together historical backgrounds, religion, the media, literature, linguistics. It's tedious now. How do they play the role in this research?
Yeah, this research, perhaps I did not mention, was domesticated by the School of Arts and Social Sciences of MUST, SAS. And SAS is a school with almost 4 or 5 departments. We have Department of Social Science Education, where there's history, there's religion, Department of Geography. We have the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication. We have Department of Criminology and Social Work. And here was an opportunity for us to work together. So the research was actually multidisciplinary. And I think that came out very beautifully. I was able to see very powerful minds at work. In this research, we worked with, for example, doctors Perez Venye and Lydia Nyonja. They are the ones who are spearheading the media and indigenous African justice system. That was that. So, that was just another big area, just as I've already explained. In fact, I'm explaining from some of the findings that they had. We also had, from linguistics, we had Dr. David Baraza. We also had Dr. Lucy Mandela. They came in very handy and they were looking at the general area of upscaling indigenous justice system in our society. We had Dr. Onyango Ater and Adama from the Department of Social Work and Criminology. They were looking at the models and the perspectives of integration indigenous African justice system in the entire justice system of the country. Who am I leaving out? Yes, historical reflection.
Yeah.
We had Reverend Dr. Father Kizito, who was working tirelessly with, I think, 4 PhD students in history. They also did a very good job. They handled that objective for us. And I think we had Dr. Ekwenye working closely again with the graduate students in religion, who looked at the area of social reengineering of the entire thing. You have already introduced me.
Okay.
I also took up the section on the nature
Yeah.
of indigenous African justice system.
As we come to the end, what is the position of research in the entire country overall?
I think the position of research is such that occasionally there is a lot of blame that not a lot is being done. But from this research, one thing I learned is that it can be done, and we have people who are able to do so, who to do research. Maybe perhaps they are just limited. Perhaps they don't have enough resources. So resource might be the issue. But otherwise, the ability is there. And some of these problems in society, we can tackle them and provide information. You know, research is about providing information really that can be used to make situation better. Like in this case, the justice system in the country.
And do you see it coming to full implementation? Because we have a system that you've talked about, systems that generate and push the implementation. Do you think that it can be implemented?
Yes, because we have finally now provided ideas. And some of these ideas we have argued very passionately about them. Like, for example, we did not really understand why we cannot swear people in the courts the traditional way, which already had proved that it could work. Instead, we moved to the Christian way of carrying the Bible. Yet, it has been observed that Christianity in Africa, to a large extent, has not really touched the African very completely. It has not, it scratches where it does not itch on the African. Where it itches is never scratched. And that's why Africans generally, they are serious Christians, but in the comfort zone. Anytime there are serious crises in life, people go back to their roots. In medicine, you will go to the big hospitals when there's somebody seriously sick, but a very crucial doctor finally will tell you, umejaribu kienyeji. You know, so kienyeji, you cannot be told to begin with it. You'll be told, have you ended with it when things have become very difficult?
Yes.
It's always going back to the roots.
So we have the solutions.
We have these solutions, but of course the swearing the African way is repugnant to the Western sense. You see how those are the issues. So these things, once we look at them, and for the first time I think we are exposing them, so that others can also provide their views, and I believe we can reach some kind of solution and come up with a system where even the justice system can work very fast, can work honestly. An African is always very honest in a very practical way, not in terms of arguing, and an African is always just honest in a simple, practical way, because we live in a world controlled by God at the apex, man at the center. So anything you do, particularly when it is matters of justice and indigenous system is brought in, things change. I'm sure if you told some of these people who swear in the Bible to swear the traditional way, none of them will. Because the traditional way will not give you any way to lie. Yes, so those are some of the things. We are challenging the society, and some of these things can work. And in some societies, by the way, they work. Already in Rwanda, when they were overwhelmed by cases, they went indigenous, the Gashasa courts. Yeah. And there are many other examples. So it is already working. We can modify and make the society a more fair society. I did not say something when I mentioned about the people we did research together with, this crucial committee in the School of Arts and Social Science. We have a validation workshop on Wednesday from 10 online. We are inviting as many people to participate because that will be an opportunity for us now to present the entire work, even the members I've mentioned will take the opportunity to present their various parts, and the public can also participate. Yes.
Thank you very much, and I think we are learning a lot, because we've had cases, and this is an example of where the customary laws, people take them to court, they take years until people die, and yet the community will call members and they agree. They simply agree and come to a conclusion. So it's a good research area, and furthermore, congratulations for winning the University Research Fund.
Thank you.
And to add on that, congratulations for being a strong researcher and in fact a community worker leading in the line of religion, history, and even incorporating media and with your team. Maybe as we come to the end, what would you say as we sum up?
As we sum up, I want to take the opportunity to thank the university for the support, so that finally it made our dream come true. And I hope by thanking the university, more is going to open, the door will open even so that a lot will still come in. Of course, we shall also be looking for avenues to just continue our work. Now that we have established a very strong working group in the school that can do research. Yeah, and this I hope my final meaning. I want us also to support our rugby team.
Yeah.
It's done us proud. It is a selling point for the university. We are now in Kenya Cup. And you know, our target is big. We believe that the future, the next big thing that will happen in rugby, Moose will play a very crucial role. Moose is the next big thing